Hello everyone, Mike Schultz, Victory Police Motorcycles. What we're going to do now is show you how simple it is to keep proper free play in the clutch lever. We notice a lot of guys are riding around with super tight levers, especially after they've done a lot of cone work for the day. This one I just came off the cone patterns after teaching Kenny Featherston a few tricks, and so what I want to do now is show you what we're dealing with. You need a 13 and a 14 millimeter open end wrench. We'll need a 10 millimeter socket, which I like to use to pull the nut on the lever. We'll need a pair of channel locks and a rag to put over the thing, and we use a little bit of moly lube on the product itself. What we have here is this bike just spent the day in the cones. We're doing some training with it. As you can see, there's no free play left in this lever. Hence, it's keeping this lever down here very tight. There's no free play in it. So what it's basically doing is holding the clutch in as the bike is riding. So what we're going to do is wind up putting a little bit of free play in that. So let me go ahead and do the adjustment first, and then we're going to go ahead and lubricate the cable. I'm going to take my 13 and 14 millimeter, take the 13 here, loosen that nut up, then I'm just going to spin some free play in this. That's about perfect. You want to come over here and look at this cable. Now you see I've got a little bit of free play in here, so it's not dragging on the clutch as the officer or the person's riding their Victory down the road. This will prolong the clutch extensively. Now that we have the free play properly set on the clutch lever, we're going to go ahead and do what I consider the most important maintenance on the clutch assembly on a Victory. And what we're going to do now is simply disconnect the clutch cable, which a lot of people seem to neglect when they service the bikes. This is probably one of the easiest procedures to perform, and all I'm going to do is disconnect the cable down here. The reason I got a rag is just I just don't want to chew the end of this lever up a little bit. Take this, pop that out. Now the clutch cable's free. Let me take this nut off. Okay. Pop this bolt out. We now have a free clutch lever. This one looks like it's in pretty good shape, greased up pretty good, but what a lot of people fail to realize is this bushing right here. Since this is one of my bikes that I ride, it's lubed up pretty good, but there is some dirt on it. We're going to go ahead and clean it up. If you see any scarring on this, take a very light grade of sandpaper and make sure this is a smooth surface. This is very important to make sure that that bushing pivots appropriately. And then I run a rag through them. I've even taken, in extreme cases where I've seen a lot of crud in there, a small Dremel tool. I'm going to run this over to the tank real quick and clean all the old grease out of it. Now we've got the lever all cleaned up and the cables all cleaned up. We're going to put a little bit of light moly lube on here. Lube up this little brass shaft. Little collar goes in here. Yeah, make sure it slides nice and easy. Then we're going to do what's really critical. I've already cleaned up the ends of the cables. We're going to put some grease on these guys. And pull this one out. Get these greased up as well. It's real important you keep these things properly lubed, especially that lever. If you don't, you're going to have probably clutch cable failures. I have never broken a clutch cable in 12 years on a Victory. But I do that religiously. Every time I change the oil, I'm lubricating the clutch lever and the points. And hence, I've never had a clutch failure on the bikes. So now we're just going to put it all back together. Get that little bolt back down in there. There we go. Okay, make sure the head is spun the right direction. Put the nut on here. You don't need a lot of tension on this perch. I don't know what the torque setting is right off the top of my head, but I just lightly snug it up anyway. It's on a nylock nut. You don't need to crank it down like a gorilla. Take this. Make sure your tool's down far enough to allow you to let that slide back in there. Take off a little bit of that excess grease. Perfect. You do this to your clutch cables and your clutch perch. Every time you change the oil, you'll never have a problem on these Victories. And keep a little bit of free play in here. That'll keep you from riding on that lever down there, keeping the clutch basically slightly engaged, eventually causing slippage. Keep that free play in here. So I've got probably a little bit more than normal, and I've got a little bit more than what the manual calls for, but I like them that way so I'm not always way out on the clutch. Thank you guys for paying attention to Victory Police Motorcycles, and the more we can do to help you guys ride safe and with the lowest maintenance possible, we're glad to do it.